Welcome, everyone. I've got some Transform Pelvic Health people and others invited from different realms coming to this special workshop. My goal here is to talk about my own experience with meditation and how it has been a really integral part of my practice, healing from chronic pain and dysfunction to letting go of deeper patterns and really becoming more aligned, more free from fears, anxiety, all the things that, we deal with as human beings. I found it to be the most important habit that I've ever created out of other habits, such as eating healthy or exercising, those sort of things, brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is probably important too, but meditating seems to be really important. So I'm going to be talking about, things I have done that have helped me. And also I work with a lot of clients that have chronic pain and dysfunction and things like that. And many of them are resistant to meditating and they don't really know how, or they think they can't, or they think it's not worth it. It's a waste of time. Maybe you've tried yourself and you couldn't figure out how to really do it. You gave up, but there's something here for you. So this will be a good workshop for you, good chat. And also, we're going to do a meditation together, which will be really nice. A lot of you have meditated before, you like it. You may be here just for the group meditation. That's cool. And then I'm also going to answer some questions, anything that you have towards the end there, any questions that are coming up. So, yeah, good to have you guys here with me. So, what I'm going to talk about first is my early struggles with meditation. I started having chronic pelvic floor dysfunction, chronic pain. A lot of you guys know that. Some of you maybe don't. When I was 22, almost 23 years old, and I knew of meditation. My dad meditated pretty often at that time. I didn't grow up with it at all. I was raised Catholic. The My ideas of meditation was seeing a monk on the top of a hilltop or someone holding a mudra. I didn't really know much about it, and I didn't see myself as someone who did meditate. I thought it was sort of esoteric and outside of the realm of, I guess, someone who I identified with myself. I didn't think I would do something like that. And the thing is, when you start having things fall apart in your body, first of all, I did turn to Western medicine because I had no idea what was going on. I went to doctors and I did a lot of tests, and they really weren't finding anything. So I became more open to the idea of meditation, maybe doing something like yoga or Tai Chi, some of these other practices that I've heard about and that I see out there. Even then, though, I tried some, follow your breath meditations, some chanting meditations, and or just the natural meditation, sit down and be quiet and watch your thoughts. I didn't do them very much. I didn't do them very much. Whenever I did a meditation or attempted to, the mind was so strong. The mind came in and said, this is a waste of time. Like, what are you doing? You need to get back to work. You need to be productive. You need to do something that's actually tangible, something that looks like it's going to give you results. And so I was stuck in that way of thinking or that belief for quite a long time until I really had to start. I mean, the suffering became so big that it became much more and more open. And I started to doing guided meditations and other things. Guided meditations were a lot easier, I found too, earlier on, because I mean, I remember having really bad pain and lying down in bed, finding a meditation and pressing play. And it just felt like a hammock I could lie back into. Hearing someone's soft voice, this remembrance that you will be better, you will be healed. And I probably looked up like healing ones and root chakra ones and things like that. They they were assistive. They felt like safety nets in a way during those times, and I think that's fine too, to use practices like that. But yeah, so I started to become a little more open to it, but I was not meditating every day. It wasn't a habit. I was still definitely going back and forth with a lot of patterns, being triggered by things in life and then being blindsided again by more flare ups or blindsided by relationship situations and all that. It wasn't until I was getting a divorce, this really big life change. This was when I was 29. We were we were together, my ex-wife and I, for 12 and a half years. We were high school sweethearts. We had three kids. So there was a big tumultuous change happening in life. And it was like falling apart, but I also had this sense of I could choose to be someone. That sounds kind of odd, but I mean, I could choose to create a new life. I could actually do something positive with this big shift. And I felt like it was a time for transformation. And I was also learning more about things like Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, neuroplasticity. I was learning more about the science behind meditation, brain heart coherence, and how it actually changes your physiology and your body. And I think that added more believability. I was like, okay, this is actually what's happening when you meditate versus it just being a nebulous concept. Like, oh, I guess you should feel more relaxed. That's fine. But like, does it really do anything for you? So I kind of wanted to see some of the hard facts, to see that information. And I think that helped me. And it also inspired me because I saw other people who were doing meditations to change their body, to bring more love into their life, more joy, more presence. And I knew that I desired to experience those things. So I made a really big decision. It was more of like a lot of emotional intensity around this time where I chose to no longer be who I was before. And it was either like change who you're being in quite a big way or, you know, keep being that way but feel half alive and you're not even living life. And it just didn't make any sense. Like I had to do something very drastic. And I sensed that this was something that I wasn't doing that I needed to do. That's the only way I can describe it. So sometimes intuition will lead us to things. Intuition, we might feel it in our gut. It might just be a knowing. It might be a pull towards something. You might be pulled towards meditation right now and learning more about it and using it as a practice. You might be pulled to go into a meditation retreat. You might be pulled to doing breath work or changing your diet, right? Sometimes you can sense, though, is it intuition or emotion? Is it like I'm just excited and I want something, or I'm pushing something away because it's fear? Or is there something deeper inside? And that's something that you also develop out. That honestly, I would say my intuition has gotten a lot more clear with the meditation practice. It's helped a ton because it's helped me to recognize like what thoughts are just popping in from the conditioned mind, what emotions are just needing to be felt that are emotional waves, but not aren't necessarily like objective truth. And what is intuition? What is an inner guidance system? What is the compass pointing me and showing me to do right now? And that has become more clear for me over time, which is extremely helpful in life, honestly, because I used to make decisions in a very analytical way and a very, what's the outcome going to be? How long is this going to take? What do I need to do to get it? Newtonian kind of perspective on life. And so I kind of, I made this, not kind of, I made a big decision and I chose to start meditating every day. And it was choosing to create who I am, choosing to create versus reverting back to the past self, reverting to survival, reverting back to creating another yesterday. I just didn't want to keep reliving another yesterday. And I noticed that one thing that I did every morning is that I would wake up and look at my phone. I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for quite a few years. I would check my text, probably check my email as well, maybe even get on social media. And I mean, a huge percentage of people with smartphones do this. And look, I'm not calling it out as like the one specific thing you can't do in order to change your life. But I personally noticed that I immediately would fall back into the same, like I putting pressure on myself, planning out my day. I've got all this to do. Wow, there's this email that I have to take care of this. Like all this is completely, it was crazy. Like, why was I doing that to myself? And so I chose to replace that with meditating in the morning. It's kind of like maybe you've been drinking coffee, but the caffeine's giving you jitters and you just don't feel very balanced anymore from all this caffeine. And you choose to replace caffeine with drinking a green juice each morning. I think it's quite similar to that. That's actually something I also did in 2013. I ended up replacing coffee because my body wasn't doing very well with it and I changed it for a green juice. That's a literal example, I guess. But that for me was a big shift. What I did is I started meditating each morning. I actually did use my phone often to turn on a guided meditation or music, but that was it. I didn't allow myself to look at anything else. And I would work out because I also wanted to change my body and grow and like build some muscle and have more strength and do some things like that with my body during this period of time, especially. And then I would eat breakfast and get to work. It was so crazy because I wouldn't start my work day for like 3 hours or 3.5 hours. And the past me thought that was unthinkable. I had a lot of my life when I was in my 20s where I would roll out of bed and 10 minutes later be working, essentially, like start drinking coffee and start working. And oh my gosh, the difference is dramatic because you're working because you think you have to, because you're trying to get ahead, you're trying to move forward. All of these beliefs and this pressure, and it creates such a contriving constriction in the mind body system. It's really crazy though, because when I started meditating and I was doing sometimes 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour long meditations, I actually had more time and space in my day. Like I had less problems that were coming up. When things did arise, I could handle them more clearly. That's quite amazing. There's that phrase, if you don't have 20 minutes to meditate, you need to meditate an hour. So a lot of people are like, I don't have 20 minutes. I don't have 30 minutes. I don't have it. Everyone can find 10 minutes. Everyone can find 20 minutes. Like you can find it. It is possible. I didn't watch TV a whole lot. I actually watch TV sometimes now more than I used to back then just for fun, but and it's fine to do things like that. I just mean if you notice you're scrolling on your phone a lot or watching TV or engaging in things that aren't really feeding your soul, you can start replacing some of those things. But ultimately, started that. It's been about 5 years. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever done anything for 5 years before anyway. So it's probably around 2000 days or so, a little less than that. But over time, it has changed. Earlier on, I like had to make sure I did my meditation each day because it was so important to me to interrupt the patterns of the mind. And I chose to be creating this new self, this new life, this new way of being. And I did a variety of different types of meditations. But now it's not even a question of like, am I going to meditate? It just happens naturally. It's different now. And maybe I'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, I think I probably will get into that later. So, a meditation itself comes from a word originally meaning to become familiar with. And that's really what's happening. You hear that phrase, know thyself. Know thyself. It's inscribed in many famous, important buildings, religious, spiritual locations around the world, or something similar to it. Why is it so important to know thyself? Because meditation it's an awareness of what is. You're not fooling yourself any longer. You're not just stuck in the future or the past. You come right into this present moment, right into this present moment. Maybe there's a pain in your body somewhere. Maybe there's a hurt in your heart. Maybe there's an emotion. But running away from it through distraction and action doesn't make it better. It just, pacifies it a little bit longer, pacifies it a little bit longer. So meditation is becoming familiar with the present moment and also the true self, who you really are, whatever you want to call that. Perhaps consciousness, a soul, or whatever word you want to use, but something beyond this ephemeral, you know, skin and bones and brain type of situation, which is clearly also a part of who we are too, though. Like right now, you can meditate. Maybe you are. And the word meditation means things to different people, but naturally speaking, meditation is just being exactly with what is. You're not trying to change the moment or get somewhere else or think about something or fix something from the past. Like, really, right now, if you're just sitting right here, my words are coming into your ears. You're in the moment, you're just breathing, you're sitting, you're meditating. You really are. If you're kind of listening, but also thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner right after this, you're not meditating. So, that's an example. I guess you could say maybe you're observing that happening. A lot of people aren't really able to observe that yet. And part of the meditation practice is getting good at the gap and being able to see what thoughts are popping in, which I'll talk about a little bit. Okay, I was about to talk about that's on my list. Okay. But before that, actually, I wanted to say that it's not just about relaxation or peace. I think in popular culture, meditation is often connected to relaxing, like calming, the Calm app. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to relax. I'm going to go to that inner peace. Meditation sometimes will show you those inner demons. Sometimes it'll show you things that you don't want to see, things that you've been running away from. And that's just what's active inside of you right now. It's not, the totality of your existence forever, though. So, will meditating create calm? Will it relax your nervous system? A lot of times it does. A lot of times it does. Sometimes you might even feel an increase in symptoms, an increase in anxiety or depression or physical sensations for a period of time. And then it actually drops down and goes lower, usually, though. But yeah, the gap is what I wanted to talk about. So this is so huge. This is, I guess, one of the biggest gifts I've ever received from the meditation practice itself. The gap is, if you think about it, consciousness, that which holds everything within it, the awareness of this experience. And then there's the mind that generates thoughts. There's the heart that generates or experiences, let's say, and doesn't always necessarily generate, but experiences emotions or creates emotional music to be the soundtrack to your life experience that's taking place. And then the body, which allows you to experience the sensorium, these five senses that we have. And what happens with consciousness, we're able to be aware and experience everything. All of it is consciousness, is within. It's all the same thing. It's all oneness, whatever you want to call it. If you're speaking spiritually or scientifically, quantum physics, whatever. But the gap is where, it's not, I think, therefore I am. It's not just I am my thoughts. Like I am my emotion. I am angry. I am pissed off. Are you angry? Or are you a human being, a consciousness experiencing a wave of anger? That's the gap. The gap is realizing that. By all means, I feel it. I feel fiery. I feel this heat. I feel this tightness in my chest. That's real. And emotion has a somatic, physical sensation and often a thought attached to it. So the gap is where we can see those thoughts pop in about wanting something or not wanting something, craving or aversion. We have those memories come back, fears come in, the anxiety, and you can see it without purely 100% being it. I call it the seat of consciousness sometimes. It's not that you're apathetic to life. It's not that you're just a bystander. No. Consciousness, it's, if you think about it this way, there's a screen that a movie is being projected onto. Your life, all this that's happening around you, that's the movie. And also this conscious observer, witness consciousness when you're watching it all happen. That's like being in a chair in the movie theater, watching it on the screen. Whenever you see someone, going through a really hard time, they're really sad, they're crying in a movie, you may not cry, but you may, even though it's not actually real. It's just a movie. It's very similar to that. But consciousness and the totality of it all is more like the screen and the theater and everyone, all of it put together. What I'm trying to say is the gap is, if you could think about it, a lot of times we live our life so close to the screen that we think the screen is our life. We think it's everything. We just think that's it. The gap allows you to move back to the back of the theater or move a couple of rows back, couple of rows back, couple of rows back. You're still experiencing it. You're seeing it. The emotions are real. You're crying. You're feeling it, but you have a grander perspective on it, even as it's happening. I call this a consciousness perspective. So I'd say that meditation is really helpful with creating more of a gap and becoming more objective in the way that you experience life while still being able to fully feel everything. You actually feel more of life than ever before. Although the thinking mind might be like, whoa, you're not going to be a part of life anymore. You're just going to be watching. No, you're definitely a part of it still. Also, there are lots of different types of meditation. I'm not going to go over all of them, but there are a couple of categories I wanted to go over. One is intention-based meditation, intentionality-based meditation. This is where you really do have more of an outcome or a goal, if you want to say that. in the meditation. It could be that you're balancing your chakras or your energy centers. It could be that you're doing mental rehearsal. Rehearsal. This is something that athletes do all the time. They see themselves making the basket, scoring, whatever their sport is, and they see it over and over and over again. And that actually does lay the tracks of neuroplastically. It's laying the tracks of new neural pathways for that to happen. And the science behind this is fascinating as well. You can do an intention meditation where you're sending love to your past self, or you're perceiving a past situation differently, or you're, sending healing energy to yourself or another person, things like that. Another type, would call it a singular focus. This is when you use one object and you give one thing for the mind to do so that the mind can stay busy with that instead of thinking up 1,000 thoughts. Maybe you've heard of mantras where you say a mantra over and over again, or you even chant something like Om as an example. It's pretty amazing though when you're chanting or you're humming, even just humming. You can have visual thoughts still, but it's like basically impossible to have audible type of thoughts come in. It's really cool. It's a hack, I would say. And you can also focus on the breath coming in and out. Focus on the breath coming in and out. You can do where you stare at a candle. You can focus on different body parts, body scan meditations. These give you a singular focus. It gives the mind something to do so that you can expand more in awareness, create more gap. The first one I talked about, intention-based meditation, you're actually using the mind, but with a specific outcome, and you're aligning your energy and your intent behind it versus, the mind going crazy on all these different monkey mind thoughts. The last one I'll talk about is natural meditation. That's being with what is as pure awareness. It's what I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's just being exactly with what is. You're not trying to do anything. There's no gainful activity. You're not trying to make anything better. You're just having a full allowance of exactly what's already been trying to live that you've maybe been suppressing with mental control. And we're going to do a meditation a little later, which will kind of combine a few elements, which will be cool. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can meditate if you're a person who's had trouble with it to this point. Maybe you really want to, but you haven't figured out how to do it. One thing is that you might have a current belief that you're not good at meditating. Like, I'm just not good at meditating. I've heard a lot of people say that line, to be honest with you. I'm not good at it. I don't really know how to meditate. That's a belief that you're already identifying with. It's already going to make it harder. Just set that aside. Just be curious. Maybe there's a new form of meditation you've never done before. Maybe you just haven't had that experience of deep transcendence or peace or even creating the gap, right? Just keep showing up for yourself. Keep showing up. Doesn't always happen the first time. And also, by the way, you don't have to be able to meditate well in order to heal yourself, in order to overcome chronic conditions or improve yourself. I mean, does it benefit you greatly if you're experiencing anxiety or an upregulated nervous system or depression? Of course it does. I mean, whenever you're disidentifying with stories that have been perpetuated and propagated forward for a long time, that's massive. Helps a lot. But there are other techniques that you could use. I think it's really important though that you make a choice and that you make a choice to interrupt the patterns of your mind. This is why making it a daily habit. Make it a daily habit if you choose to do so. And that could change. Maybe a year from now, you don't. Maybe you just come in and out of it. Whatever, that's fine. But if you get the sense this is good for you, I would say make a choice with a lot of emotional intensity to no longer go back to the past self and use this as one part of your transformation. And when you make that choice, you could do it in different ways. I would personally, though, recommend doing at least 90 days, at least 90 days straight. 1 year straight is a good idea as well. You could do 30, but I would usually say 90 days or more. Okay, for the next 90 days, I'm going to meditate every day. It doesn't have to be an exact, let's say minimum of 5 minutes. Maybe one day you do a 5 minute right when you wake up. Maybe the next day you do a 30-minute guided. One day you pull a meditation card. Another day you do a walking meditation. One day it was super busy and it's 11 p.m. and you're like, I haven't meditated yet. Lie in bed for 5 minutes. Experience gratitude for your day. Be in presence. It's just that you're going to choose to do that for yourself. every single day in some way. A couple of things that help a huge amount are setting up a routine. If you're like, this is when I do it usually, right after I wake up. Or for some, that may be really hard. I have 3 kids, I get it. And getting them ready for school and things like that, there are days where it's not ideal to meditate right after I wake up. So maybe when the kids are dropped off from school, something like that, or when you come home from work, it may be right after you do a yoga class. It may be right after you do a walk. It might be when you're outside. It might be right before you go to sleep. Right before you go to sleep can be a harder time for some people because they tend to fall asleep, so they don't really meditate. But some people really like that. Right when you wake up or right before you go to sleep is a really good time in terms of the way your brain waves are transitioning, though. Set up a space as well where, you have your meditation cushion or your chair or your mat, or you can light a candle. Little rituals help a huge amount, actually, with things like this, making it feel sacred for you. And I would also say an accountability partner or a group is super important. You might even put something on the line, like if I break one day, I have to, I don't know, do some crazy thing that I would not want to do. I have to make a video of myself doing some silly dance and post it on TikTok, whatever. Like you could make some sort of pact with a friend or join a meditation challenge or a group where you're going to do this with other people and check in. These things help a ton. If you have no accountability for yourself, people have a lot more integrity with others than they have self integrity to themselves. So they're less likely to follow through on things they say, and then they don't trust their choices. So don't just trust your choices. Enlist some other people in some way. And then you said it out loud. You made the choice. And you may think I'm being extreme about saying every day or the 90 days. I'm just giving you, if you've had trouble making this into a habit, this is extremely helpful. One thing that I had trouble making into a habit for quite a few years was not checking my email so much. And I tried things where I'm like, I'm not going to check my email until 2 p.m. And then I'd fell a weekend. I'd go back and forth, go back and forth. I actually broke it. I think it was April 2022. And April 2022, I was like, I'm not checking my email until 2 p.m. only Monday through Friday. I'm only doing one email check a day. And I told my sister, and there was something that was on the line. What the heck was it? I think it was like donating to some charity that I would never actually want to support. And I had to tell her though. I had to tell her if something happened. And I didn't break it. Like the whole 30 days in a row was because it was like, why would I ever go back? This is way better. Why was I checking my email 20 times a day? Due to this like anxiety and feeling like I'm busy. And whenever you get enough momentum, it's really the idea of like going back to not meditating or not pausing to be centered and grounded and present just in everyday reality is like insanity. There's no way I'm doing that. There's no way I'm doing that. It's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Eating junk food your whole life and then going on a healthier, like whole foods diet, your body feels way better. You're not going to go back. Um, so it gets a lot easier once you get to a certain point because I was thinking of this earlier and it's almost like my mind body system craves presence and being grounded and centered. And the same way your body craves water when you're dehydrated. That's really what it's like, I've noticed. Crave is a strong word, but it's just an awareness that it feels really good when you're there instead of this crazy like busyness and thinking and manager of the mind, always trying to plan the next thing and avoid our deeper emotions, avoid our fears because of, distraction and action. So there's not really a time requirement either. Like I said, you could do maybe a minimum of 5 minutes. I would recommend probably choosing some sort of time, but you could change up the links. Also, try different types of meditations. Guided is a really good place to start. I actually have a lot of guided meditations in the Overcome or Vigor program. Some of y'all are in those programs. I also have some meditations on Insight Timer. Insight Timer is a really nice meditation app anyway. I really like it. You could do breath work. Breath work is similar. I mean, it puts you into a meditative state. I really like it. You could use meditation cards, such as the deck that my partner Sylvia and I just created. I'll show you in a second. I'll show you later on. It's really cool. It's 60 cards. You pull one and you do that meditation that day. And you can meditate. You don't need a device or anything. You can bring it anywhere with you. It's pretty cool. Emotional practices. somatic tracking, walking meditations. Like there are a lot of different things that you could do that you may not even think is meditation. Like somatic tracking, it's not called somatic meditation, right? It's very similar to a meditation though, because you're going into non-resistance and you're aware of the sensations in your body without feeding into them. So I would classify it as a type of meditation. So ultimately, you're choosing to prioritize the interruption of past patterns of the mind because they just run rampant until you stop everything. Yeah, you guys know what that's like, right? You know what it's like when the mind is just going and going and going and trying to fix something and running away from an emotion and upset and feeling stuck, going, 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 going until you finally collapse and you just collapse and you cry or you stop and then there's like an opening. There's a bit of a lightness. There's a bit of a release because we're not meant to be in this constant busy minded state always. It's extremely imbalanced. So meditation is because we have this super busy minded, mental world, technology and all these communications. It's very different than living thousands of years ago. I think that meditation is kind of like forcing a practice and making sure we're at least taking some time off and not doing something with our minds. Yeah. Also, another thing is you might not want to meditate, and it's when you don't want to do something, often there's something there for you. Because I find that people often avoid these deeper feelings, these emotions that are actually inside of them that are stuck and that are repressed and need to be felt. And a lot of times that's what's causing their chronic pain or dysfunction, or part of it at least, or fear. Fear is, I would classify it as an emotion, but it's so scary. Some people don't even want to talk about it. So, yeah, this busyness keeps you from coming in contact with it. And yeah, so there are a lot of reasons why meditation is helpful. All right. I'm going to be guiding us through a meditation and then I'll be answering some questions and I'll show you guys the deck that we made. I think it's pretty cool. And then we'll be wrapping up later on. This meditation, you don't really have to know much of anything. I'm just going to guide you and we're going to start out with some simple breathing. We're going to do some nasal breathing. So we're going to just breathe in and out through the nose. That's going to really calm down the nervous system. And then we're going to experience the energy of our hearts. And that's actually going to bring more energy here. You could call it opening the heart, bringing more into love. It's good for brain heart coherence and a lot of other things like that. And then we're really going to have more of a natural meditation after that of just being with what is. And don't try to control the meditation. I'll be giving you some pointers here and there. I won't be talking like constantly though. Just let it be what it is. Really let it be what it is. You can't do it wrong. You can't master it. It's just being with what is. All right. Enjoy it. If you have an eye mask, I'd recommend putting it on. It's actually really helpful to have an eye mask. I don't have mine right with me, but that's really good. Otherwise, closing your eyes is a good idea too. We'll get started. Okay. Ah. All right. So closing your eyes, letting yourself settle in with a back that is straight. We'll start with some nasal breathing, coming in and out through the nose only. 4 count in, 4 count out. Inhale, exhale, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, in, out, and keep going. And now just letting yourself relax back into normal breathing, relaxing and being present, relaxing your shoulders, letting your jaw go, letting your belly relax, letting go of your buttocks, no tension in the hands or the feet, really just letting go, letting go, letting go. Bring your awareness to your heart, your chest. Bring your awareness, your attention, your energy there. And what is something for which you have tremendous gratitude? Maybe something that you experienced today, or even right now, or a person, or a pet, or bring that up in your heart, giving thanks, feeling appreciation. And what else about today? Think about today. What are you grateful for? Is there something in particular? Reflect upon that and feel that in your heart right now. The joy of experience, joy of life, living. Even if you feel tightness or pain or an adverse sensation somewhere, it's okay. We're just going to let everything be like that right now, filling into our heart. And can you surround yourself with love? Loving you exactly as you are right now. Embracing yourself for who and what you are all the way. Letting go of the past, of any regret, anywhere you haven't been forgiven or that you have not forgiven yourself. Of having to do something just right or perfect. You can let all that go now. Embracing yourself And letting go of the future as well, the clinging, the needing, the forcing, the figuring out. Of course, you can make plans and walk in a direction, but letting go of this sense of control, and you'll notice the freedom in that. And simply being here exactly with what is. You don't have to do anything. There may be a sensation, feeling hot or cold, tingling or tightness or pain. You may notice thoughts popping in, an emotion, sounds in your environment, smells, sensations. Calming here and now. No longer fighting or running away. This doesn't mean life is always going to be exactly as it is right now, but we're fully allowing what is. Letting go of the grip of the mind to control. You don't have to control your breath or do anything special. Settling in, settling into the here and now. The mind might not know what to do. And just watch and notice that the mind doesn't know what to do. You're not the mind. It's happening within your awareness. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean you have to believe it. Just because you have an urge doesn't mean you have to follow through on that urge. Being in this neutral place of non reaction. Dropping all of the mental games, wishing things were different than they are, trying to force something, just letting all that go. If you get lost in some thoughts, come right back. You can notice the way it feels as you breathe, or you can notice what it's like in your hand, your foot. If you want to anchor somewhere, you can, or just be as pure, unencumbered awareness of this and this and this. You don't even have to do anything. You might notice the urge to do something, to figure it out, to take action with the mind. It's the not doing that we're actually being present with right now. The mind might be waiting for something to happen, for some spiritual moment, certain energy. Just notice that too. Things like that can happen and they may not. There may be a part of the body that's still holding on with resistance. See if you can soften that a little more if you find it. I'd like you to slowly open your eyes and stay in this exact same state, though. The eyes are open, taking in the visual field, but nothing else has changed. Nothing else has changed. Being right here exactly with what is, aware of sensations such as the visual field, sound, taste, touch. Might have a thought that pops in. You may feel bored or not sure what to do with the mind. Just notice that that's the mind. Okay, so we're going to slowly return to conversation and interaction. I'd encourage you, though, to stay in more of this gap, even the rest of the session, and be aware. So, yeah, meditation doesn't really end. But yeah, we are going to have a little conversation here. I want to answer some questions. So, any questions about anything tonight, meditation, or maybe even an experience you just had during the meditation that you want to share? I'll answer Matt's question. Okay, Matt.
Is it okay to have two questions? I just wanted to ask a couple of questions.
Oh, totally.
So the first one is when you feel an emotion when you're in a situation, usually I get a trigger and it's in a certain environment. But then when I'm meditating, it doesn't, I don't feel that emotion or it doesn't come up. So like it comes up in an environment where I don't have time to create space. And what's like the bridge in the gap in that sense?
So meditation itself as a practice, I have found does help create more of a gap even in your waking state. You can't always reactivate the exact emotional wave in the way it would be experienced in real life just by thinking about a
Hmm.
situation. What I'm getting at is if you have a daily meditation practice, it tends to bleed over into your waking state and it makes it a little bit, it happens over time. It's kind of gradual. Um, you can start to see right before you react. You can even catch yourself a little earlier on. Has that happened at all yet? Or like tell me about, and it depends. Sometimes some really strong triggers, it's harder to do it with. Sometimes there are like quote unquote not as severe triggers where you can catch yourself in the gap more easily. Does that make sense?
So with having like fear of confrontation, for example, that fear will come up when I'm in a confrontational space, but then when I'm sat in the meditation chair, it won't necessarily arise, if that makes sense.
So if you think about a person that you're not wanting to confront when you're in meditation, do you have any like physical response to that? Do you notice any changes?
Sometimes, yeah, feel some tension for sure.
So that's what I would work with is you can actually do kind of like that rehearsal thing where you observe a situation that you're dealing with in your life during a meditation. And it's kind of like people who have chronic pain, sometimes they'll just think about sitting down and like they already start to have back pain, even though they're not even doing it. You can actually
Hmm.
activate that physiology inside of you and notice like tension or constriction. It might even be more physical than what you might call an emotion, but work with with that physical sensation and see if you can relax and release in the face of it. So you can desensitize yourself some to these situations during meditation. Another thing you can
Hmm.
do is like do that, kind of desensitize yourself, see yourself reacting or responding differently the way you choose to, and also send love to the other person. When you send love to someone who I sometimes call the antagonist of your life, someone who you would never think, like, I don't love them, I don't want to send them love. It's pretty crazy how it changes your heart over time. It's just another thing you could try doing. But the more you meditate in general and kind of even if it's not like every day I meditate for 10 minutes. I mean, look, if you take a break after lunch and you go for a walk, or you take a couple of times a day where you're not in the incessant mind chatter. I mean, incessant mind chatter might still be going on, but you're not feeding it. It's really helpful in creating the gap. And then you get more adept at not reacting so quickly.
The second thing I wanted to ask you about quick is when I did the 2 day silent retreat,
Uh-huh.
you said about when you get pain in your body, and I was sat there for the 2 hour meditation. I had a bit of pain on my shoulders and in my back, and I was trying to last for like 20, 30 minutes. And it got to the point where I was like, this is so uncomfortable, I have to move. But I've heard you on your podcast and your talks talk about when you sort of go through the pain and then it transforms or it moves somewhere. What would your advice be with that?
Okay, so you said you did 20, 30 minutes and then it was so difficult you had to move, right?
It was just so discomfort. There's so much discomfort that it was kind of ruining the meditation. It was like I have to readjust my body because I can't focus.
Yeah. There's not like an exact answer, like you have to sit through it. I mean, if you're curious on what's the other side of it, I would say go a little further next time. I'm not saying, be in severe pain and you also can tell when it's, I guess you could call it like a quality pain versus a legitimate medical type of pain, for lack of
Hmm.
a better word. And these pains like that, they're being generated from these repressed energies and emotions and things from the past. So they're like the top level weeds that are growing from something way lower down. So yeah, if you're in the situation again and it's happening, I would just say be curious about sitting with it for longer
Hmm.
and know that you're like you can also tell deep down you're going to be safe or not, especially if it's that type of pain. I'm not saying you have to do it,
Hmm.
you have to stick with it. I'm not saying that you failed either. But if you study, I think in Zen or Buddhism or something, they have different levels of meditative absorption that basically talk about how these like the journey basically unfolds sometimes, the purification process. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. That
Definitely.
was
Thanks for
awesome.
the
Thanks,
questions.
Michael.
Yeah, definitely. I'll answer a couple more questions tonight. Kara has her hand raised. Okay, cool. And go ahead, Kara.
I had a couple of experiences that were new for me. One was that I unfortunately I took a pretty bad fall yesterday, and so I injured my leg. And I noticed when we were done, when you had us come out and we were sort of in that place where our eyes were open, but we were still in the meditative state, I had this feeling of real compassion for my leg, like just real awareness and real tenderness toward myself and toward my leg. And I know with things like falling, it's so easy to, I don't think I'd realized how hard I'd been on myself in my head with that, kind of shaming and
Yeah,
it was really a gift to have that a little bit of a gap between the identification with the fall and the part of me that could be present to my leg hurting.
that's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad that
I
happened for you tonight too. Last thing I wanted to share all this because I'm just really happy that it was created and really cool creation. Sylvie is my partner and she's an illustrator. She actually illustrated 60 cards and I wrote 60 different meditations. So it's this deck that's called Truly Aligned Meditation Cards. And it's pretty cool because there are 60 different meditations, really beautiful art that kind of brings you into the energy of that meditation. What I like about these cards is that you don't know what you're going to get. That's one of my favorite things about it. If I'm like, "Hey, I feel that I need a reset. I need to pause, jump and interrupt the mind." Hey, let me go grab the deck, shuffle it up, let me just shuffle it up, see what comes out. And it's different, than going on YouTube or you can just sit and meditate as well, but it's a fun new way to meditate. Let's see what we get. Okay, this one is called Om chanting. So it's that technique we talked about earlier where you can give the mind one thing to do. It's very simple. It gives you three prompts. You read them and then you close your eyes and you do the meditation. But yeah, there's six different categories: balance, create, love, release, connect, cultivate. And it's a really nice tool to have. And I think it's a cool creation. So if you guys want to get this deck, it would be amazing for you to get it for yourself and have a tool where you're not always using technology or turning on a guided meditation and you can bring it around with you. And it definitely supports Sylvie and I a lot if you want to get the deck. And also, please do write a review. That would be extremely helpful so that other people know what it's like. You can get it on Amazon. So it's on Amazon US and Amazon Canada. And it's only $20 right now for the whole deck. So hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for supporting it. And I'd love to hear how it goes for you. I guess that's it for today. Thank you guys for being here. I really hope this was invigorating, exciting. Like I remember, especially when I was starting to make it a daily habit, I actually was excited to go to sleep because I was looking forward to my meditation the next morning. I honestly was. I was like, I can't wait to meditate tomorrow because of this energy of peace and presence and power and creating a new version of yourself or really letting go of the not self and then the true you is coming through is really what's happening. But hopefully that's how you guys feel about meditation now and that you learned a little something, you had a good experience. Thank you guys for being here and I'll see you again sometimes. Okay. Take care. Bye, everyone.